bring Casey Joyner into the conversation, ESPN.com senior NFL insider, and get his thoughts on what we saw yesterday as Philadelphia up 17-0. Casey, you said on Friday this is going to be a heavyweight slugfest. Well, the slugfest wasn't really there because the Eagles refused to run the ball.
Yeah, well, part of it was they had some of the worst run blocking of the season for them. I graded them out as a 40% good blocking rate, but I have a metric called good blocking productivity. Measures how productive, just your overall productivity in the running game, not just how the quality of your run blocking. They get a 2.0. League average is around 3. 2.0 is the worst they've had all season long, and I think that's part of why they gave up on the running game in the fourth quarter.
He was asked today, Doug was asked today, does he trust the personnel? Does he trust his run game? He says, I do. I trust the guys. Do you think that he trusts his personnel and that running game when you're up 17-0 and you refuse it? Or is it what you say? Maybe he doesn't trust his offensive line?
I don't think he could have trusted the running game yesterday, but it's not whether or not you trust it, it's whether or not you give up on it entirely. When you look at they're up 21 or up 17-0, then they give up the touchdown at the beginning of the fourth quarter, and then it's 6 straight passing plays, and then the next series when it's 17-14, then it's 3 straight passing plays, and they punt, and then finally do 1 running play on their last. When you're up by that much, I don't understand why you don't at least try and run the ball some. You have 10 plays or 9 plays in your first 2 drives, and you don't run the ball once. If you get a 40% good blocking rate, even if you're only getting you're not getting that good of a good blocking productivity, you get that good of blocking for a game, you should be able to run the ball in the fourth quarter to close this thing out.
They scored 17 points. Their offense has been an issue. Last year, they were explosive. They were able to score. What are they missing offensively now to where we keep talking about the defense, and we'll get to it. Their secondary, they give up 21 points in the fourth quarter alone, but 17 at home, that's not good enough in this league. I said this game, they're giving you points. They're handing out points like the SAT. If you sign your name, you get points for showing up in this league now.
What I don't understand is you look at the vertical passing that Philadelphia had in the first 3 quarters of the game. So first, second, and third quarter, Wentz is 10 of 14 on vertical passes. That's throwing 11 or more yards downfield. It's not dink and dunk stuff when you're trying to go downfield. 10 of 14, 178 yards, 12.7 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, 71% completion rate, 6 of 7 on vertical passes to Ertz, 3 of 4 on vertical passes to Jeffrey. I mean, they're doing really well. Then you fast forward to their fourth quarter vertical passing metrics. 0 for 2. 2 passes to Jeffrey, that's it. So everything that's working for you in the first 3 quarters, your running game is getting a 40% good blocking rate. That's good enough to close out a game. You're also going vertical. You're 10 of 14, 71% completions, and you don't throw vertical passes. It's like they got for the first 3 quarters, so we're up 17-0 now. We can just play any kind of game plan and run the game out instead of getting the clock ball, or go ahead and be vertical and be just as aggressive and get a 24th point, so you don't have to worry about them getting a 21-point fourth quarter.
Casey, the Panthers have a lot of smart veteran players. starting with their linebackers, Kuechly and Bryant. It almost. Yeah, I'm sorry. Who's that?
Thomas Davis.
Davis. It almost seems like they. I don't want to say outsmarted the Eagles, but clearly the Eagles became very reliant on getting the ball to Ertz and getting the ball to Jeffrey. And those were guys that Wentz was trying to target and couldn't hit there in the fourth quarter. Last year, the Eagles were able to get a third option, and it was usually Nelson Aguilar, if not the running game. And to me,
he's been
Aguilar had
man.
20 yards, and obviously the running game wasn't there. That, to me, answers it, is that they've just not been able to find something outside of Ertz and Jeffrey that's been able to produce for them offensively.
They only went out of those, and again, going back to the fourth quarter, because that's where the game got decided. As a whole, Wentz is 7 of 10. He's 0 of 2 on the vertical passes. He's 7 of 8 on short passes. He only gets 29 yards. He throws to Jeffrey 4 times in the fourth quarter. He's 2 of 4 for 11 yards. It's just dink and dunk throws. And he throws to Ertz twice in the fourth quarter. Completes 1 for 14. Twice to Aguilar. Gets 2 completions for 1 yard. It's like he got really conservative. That's the thing. Peterson has the reputation of being, in fact, not a well-earned reputation of being somebody who will be aggressive. Philly. You've got those situations where this guy's going to be a guy who's going to go for the win. And the fourth quarter of this contest you didn't play clock ball, you didn't go vertical. It was just dink and dunk throws. It was like what I was even joking before we came on the air. I said it's like he almost lost a portion of his play calling card in the fourth quarter. Like he couldn't find it. So the only thing he could call was short passes, because I can't explain it otherwise.
Yeah, the Aguilar thing is kind of he has been kind of almost phased out. You know, I mean, he was such a weapon for them last year. He caught 6 balls, but for 20 yards yesterday. It doesn't seem, for whatever he was doing right yesterday, I don't know if it's because he caught people by surprise, that they weren't prepared for him as much, but he seemed like he was always making a play, and he always seemed like he was very opportunistic, kind of like the Giant game. The ball went up in the air, boom, there's Nelson Aguilar. This year, he seems like either teams are taking him out, or I don't know what the difference is there, but I don't know if you're seeing something with what is different with Nelson Aguilar, because he seems, his production, 62 catches, 768 yards, 8 touchdowns last year, is way off.
He needed to be slotted into a certain place in the offense, and there are certain players that in fact, I remember writing about Mike Shanahan back in the day, that players would show them that he could do certain things, and then he'd be, obviously he'd like what they were doing, he'd have success, but then he would want them to do other things. He would always ask them to do even more than what they were doing, even if when they started to do more, the player wouldn't be anywhere near as good. Didn't matter to Shanahan, because he wanted players who could do everything. In fact, he wrecked a few players because of that. He destroyed their confidence and seemingly ruined their careers. I don't mean intentionally, but he's just asking too much of them. It's what happened. And I'm looking at Aguilar, and I'm wondering the same thing. They found a formula for him last year, and this year they're saying, okay, you need to do more than what you did in that formula, running out of slot and playing a certain role in our offense. I understand the injuries have been part of the reason he's had to do it, but I think that might be it. That there's a certain role that he can fill and a certain role that he feels comfortable filling, and if you ask him to get outside that comfort zone, he can't do it very well. And right now, that's what they're asking him to do, is get outside that comfort zone, and it's not working.
Casey, the Panthers execute 3 very long touchdown drives in under 10 minutes, or about 10 minutes against the Eagles. From a defensive coordinator standpoint, from what Jim Schwartz did or didn't do, what stood out to you?
Things that stand out to me, and as far as what the Eagles did in this contest, was they only got pass rush pressure on Cam Newton 30. They got pass rush pressure on 31.8% of the time, which is pretty good. It was the 10th best pass pressure rate in here, and they're only blitzing 13.6% of the time, which was the 6th lowest blitz rate. So they were getting pass rush pressure on him.
Somebody blitzes less than Schwartz?
Yes, believe it or not.
Hard to believe.
Believe it or not, there were 5 teams that had actually Cincinnati yesterday didn't blitz Mahomes at all, and it only worked for them for 45 points the other way. So, no, they did, but they were getting pass rush pressure. So if you're getting a decent pass rush pressure, I'd still like to see them blitz more, but they're getting decent pass rush pressure. That works.
That had to be weighted heavily, though, by the first 3 quarters, because they were not getting, I don't know the breakdown by quarter, but it seemed like in the fourth quarter they were not getting any.
I don't know that number. The number's right in front of me, but yeah, I would think that it was very heavily weighted to the first 3 quarters. The thing about the Eagles' defense, though, yesterday was they did a really good job stopping the run, which Carolina came into the contest as I think they're graded 3rd in my run blocking metrics after Week 6. And Philadelphia overall did a good job stopping the run, because again, you're only giving up 13 planned running plays, but they gave up 53.8% good blocking rate, which is terrible, and they gave up 13.1 yards per attempt when they gave up good blocking, which is an awful number. That was a problem for them the last couple of years, where they would stop teams on the ground, but then when the teams did get good blocking, they were getting big plays. So it makes me think that the Eagles secondary was saying, we're going to take up a vertical pass, we're not going to come up to stop the run. And it worked for them most of the time, but then when Carolina decided to get the run going, it didn't work. So the Eagles got to get that shored up, or else that's going to be a problem the rest of the year.
Casey joined us with us. We talked right before he came on about their secondary. You have Darby, Mills, Jones is out right now, but we thought that was going to be a strong suit for them. Do teams look at that secondary and say, we're going to go after you?
I would think they would say we're going to go after you. Although, again, if you're looking at vertical passing for Carolina yesterday, Cam is 6 of 12 for 122 yards, 10.2 yards per attempt. It's not that good. They threw Funchess. Coming into that contest, he was 2 yards short of having a half of Carolina's vertical passing. I mean, that's how integral he is to their offense. He's literally almost half of their vertical production. He's 2 of 5 for 29 yards on vertical passes yesterday. So, I mean, they let Torrey Smith catch 2 of 3 for 49. Jarius Wright catch 1 for 28, and Curtis Samuel catch 1 for 16. So that was a concern. It's good that they were able to pretty much take Funchess out of the contest in the vertical perspective, which is his big role to that team. But you got to be able to stop the other guys too. And if you can't stop Smith, Wright, and Samuel, if they're going 2, 3, 4, there are 4 or 5 for roughly 90 yards. That's not huge numbers, but it's enough to keep drives going. And you can't let the secondary guys on the other team beat you, and they did.
What is a trend that is attributing to their losses that has been a trend all season, that maybe wasn't happening last year, and we keep saying, well, maybe it'll go away. Maybe it'll go away. And it appears that it is not going away, and it is attributing them to their 3-4 record.
I mentioned the big plays you're giving up on the ground. That is a huge factor, because when you start giving up those big plays on the ground, you suddenly have to bring your safeties up, because there's a few ways that you can stop the run in the NFL, and the least productive one is to bring your safeties up and use them as run stoppers. It works, but it's the least productive, because usually it still leads to longer gains than it would be if you stop in the other ways that you can, and it also impacts your passing game, which is not good. Also, their rushing attack, again, 3.0 in that good blocking productivity is the league average. Philadelphia now has 3 games where they've been under 3.0, and they have a couple of games where they're just barely over 3.0. This is a team that is capable of getting 4s and 5s in contest in this metric. And that, again, if you're not getting in the 4s and 5s, you really don't have an impact ground game. So I don't like where their ground game is, and I don't like the way to stop in the run, and I think those are the factors that are really impacting everything else.
A lot of things we said on Friday happened. Zach Ertz, big day. You mentioned that he should have a big day there, that the big plays are to be had against the Panthers secondary. We saw some of them. They didn't stick with it, and the Eagles fall to 3-4. Let's look at what else happened around the NFL. Casey Joyner here. Week 7 recap. Let's go to London. Chargers beat Tennessee on the final play. Mike Vrabel goes for 2. They don't get it. The Chargers sneak out of there with a victory. The Titans, last time they won was against Philadelphia, but the Chargers have now turned into a team that we got to keep our eyes on in the AFC.
Chargers now, I believe I ranked them 4th or 5th in my power rankings this week for the ESPN power rankings. They are that good. Them in Kansas City, that's going to be a great stretch run for those teams. I don't understand Tennessee. I get them going for it on that last play. That's the play you chose. I don't get that. The players like that when you go for it, but they'd really like to see you call something a little more creative than that, because that was a pretty sorry play.
New England goes on the road without Gronk. They beat the Bears. The Bears, down to the final play. Trubisky, 333. He led them in rushing. I mean, he did it all. Burton had a huge day, 126 yards, but in the end, too much Brady.
And if you're talking with the Bears, I mean, they're showing that the Patriots' defense is really not that good. Problem for the Bears, though, and a big plus for the Patriots, is the Patriots allow the second lowest pass pressure rate of this season, not for themselves, but for the entire league. The second lowest pass pressure rate of the season against the Bears yesterday. It shows that they can give great pass blocking for Brady. It's scary for the rest of the league.
All right, you got Buffalo getting bombed by Indianapolis. Just when you think the Bills, like, they win a game, then they lose, then they win, it's like, all right, here's a winnable game. They get bombed.
The Colts' run blocking was phenomenal yesterday. I talk about that in my ESPN Plus fantasy blocking review article for Week 7, and it's up on the ESPN fantasy section. The Colts' run blocking was tremendous yesterday against the Bills' defense that have been really good against the run. And Luck only threw 23 passes yesterday, so now if they could start running the ball, he doesn't have to throw 800 passes. Now you're talking that's a much better team.
How about that? He led the league in passes. They chose to run, and look what happened. Voila, a victory.
Yeah.
Detroit on the road, they beat Miami. Miami had lost 2, then they beat Chicago, opened people's eyes, but Brock Osweiler is still Brock Osweiler, but yet he outpassed Matthew Stafford yesterday, but it still wasn't good enough, 32-21.
Wasn't good enough because Kerryon Johnson is 159 yards, led the Week 7 rushers, and he did it both on that one breakaway run, but also because Detroit's had tremendous run blocking, over 50% good blocking rate for their games this year. That's going to be, they're turning from a pass-heavy team to a run-heavy team. That's going to be good for them.
Minnesota wins again, dominate the Jets, Kirk Cousins and crew. You got Murray involved. Thielen's great. Their defense played better. They seemed to confuse Darnold yesterday. Now, all of a sudden, Minnesota is starting to pile up a couple of wins.
Their problem early in the season was, again, I keep coming back to run blocking, but their run blocking wasn't just bad. It was atrocious for a while. They've had 2 straight games with a 50% or higher good blocking rate. If they can keep it, and again, they're doing it without Cook. Imagine when you get Cook back, and now you've got Cook and Murray, now you've got a Thunder Lightning backfield, and you've got Thielen, and you've got Diggs, and you've got Rudolph, and you've got those guys who can cover on defense. That turned into a much stronger form of the team. So Minnesota's trending upward in a big way.
Tampa Bay gets a win for the first time since they beat Philly. Winston 365. Cleveland loses on the road. Chubb gets entered as the running back there. Finally got a chance to see him. Overtime. Cleveland's played 4 overtime games, but they lose this one 26-23.
And they keep finding ways to lose, too. They had chances in overtime. They had chances elsewhere. You think they're not going to be Cleveland, but they are. I still think that down the road they're going to have a coaching change, because I think they've hit the ceiling of what they're going to hit under Hugh Jackson. He's done some good things for that team, but they're still losing games. They should have won that game yesterday, and they're going to keep losing those games until they make a change.
Houston wins again, 4 in a row. What's going on with Jacksonville? They make a quarterback change, although this week they're going to go back to Bortles, but a short leash. That's a long flight to only play a half to go to London. But Jacksonville loses 20-7. Houston's 4 in a row. Jacksonville is falling apart.
Yeah, Houston's doing a lot of things right, and their pass blocking, though, is atrocious, and it's going to be a problem for them down the road, because they've given up. They've had 5 of the bottom 25 pass pressure rates allowed this year. They've had so 5 of the worst pass blocking games this season. It's going to be a problem for Houston, but for Jacksonville, it's a number of factors. It's mostly around Bortles, though. When he's scrambling around like that, he's got to tuck that ball away. When he doesn't, you're losing fumbles like that. You're putting your team in a really bad situation, and that's why I think the players in that team are maybe, I don't want to call it a mutiny or anything. I don't want to call it anything like that, but you can tell they don't believe in the direction where this team's going, and a lot of that's Bortles.
Missed field goal cost Baltimore as the Saints go on the road to beat the Ravens. I guess the fact that the Saints are able to go on the road and win at a tough place like Baltimore says New Orleans is right there with the Rams. I don't know what it says about Baltimore, because this is a team that goes back and forth for me in my head each and every week. I don't know if I should believe in them or not, or are they just an average team?
They're just outside of the top 10 for the same reasons you were mentioning, just have that inconsistency of the Ravens. I mean, and the Saints been saying for a few weeks now that the Saints want to get back to that ground game. They did that pass-heavy stuff early in the season because they had to. They don't want to be that team. They want to be they've got one of the toughest run defenses in the league, and they've got a better secondary once they started doing their assignments, because they blew some assignments early in the year. They get better at their assignments. They have decent pass rush. They can run the ball very well. You still have Breeze. You still have big play players. You can go on the road and win in Baltimore like that, even though it took a missed extra point to do it. It says a lot for them. I got the Saints ranked 4th in my power rankings.
All right. How about the Rams? They obviously took care of business, but going on the road in the division, and they bombed San Francisco. Any flaws with this Rams team moving forward that we should start to look at, because they almost put up 40 again, and Goff only hit 200 yards.
It's amazing, because their defense had kind of struggled the past 3 weeks, and you saw what San Francisco did on Monday night, and they hit some big passes. And thought, okay, well, and Bethard threw 2 touchdown passes and nearly 300 yards 3 weeks in a row. I'm figuring, maybe the San Francisco can keep up with them. I mean, you knew the Rams could win, but I thought it could be a closer game. No, the Rams just destroyed them. My concern about the Rams is, as great as they are, Cup's gone. Josh Reynolds isn't a very good replacement for him. He's okay, but he's not that good. If they get another injury to in the wide receiver core, that could really impact them. But as long as they stay healthy, best team in the league.
Dallas loses. They do pick up Amari Cooper today for a first-round pick. Is that too much? Washington holds them off. They lose this game every year. They found a way to win it. Peterson, almost 100 yards. Seems like Washington, I don't know, they feel like right now they're getting a little bit of confidence with that safe game. Hand it off. Alex Smith, nice and safe.
I'd say they're playing percentage football. And mind you, they've got the team. If they play percentage football, ground game that works, and the running game has been really good, and Peterson's showing that he can be just a true workhorse. You've got Smith hitting the vertical passes. That's the form of football for them. It will work, and I like it. And Dallas, I like the trade for Cooper. Will they let him call plays? Because I think that's where they really help him if he could do that.
First-round pick, though, too much?
Yeah, for a receiver, but they're in such desperate straits at receiver. You almost have to overpay at that point, because I mean they don't have any passing. They've got the formula of the rest of the team: run defense, running game, all the other things they've got worked. They have nothing in the passing game. If he gives them instant passing in, or it's at least mid-tier passing, it would be worth it for the short term.
Kansas City, too much for Cincinnati. Those guys are like you have a joystick watching that game.
It's incredible, and Cincinnati, like I mentioned, they don't even do the blitzing and such. You've got to do something. You've got to put pressure on Mahomes. That's what teams have shown this year. If you put pressure on Mahomes, you've got a chance to. You won't you won't slow him down necessarily, but you can make him throw some inaccurate passes, because he don't like pressure in his face. And Cincinnati sitting back like it did, not blitzing, not getting pass rush pressure. You're asking for them to beat you. So I think it showed teams that's how you have to go about beating Mahomes, is get after him.
Quick thought on tonight.
Quick thought on tonight, expecting Atlanta to do really well. I think we're going to see a limited Giants team. I think Atlanta's going to, because Atlanta's a lot better team than what their record shows that they're going to show tonight.
All right, you can hear that game tonight on 97.3 ESPN. That's Casey Joyner, ESPN.com, senior NFL insider fantasy expert, and of course at KC Joyner TFS on Twitter. He'll be back on Friday's show to break down Eagles and Jags and all of the Week 8 matchups. Thank you, pal.
Appreciate it, man.